Yay, the kids are finally asleep.
So do you feel like...
Playing a game?
I've got a feeling a boss fight's coming up.
Ooh, I just got wrecked.
Headshot, baby.
Ooh, it's your turn to get the baby.
So are you up to the challenge?
Run, 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 run.
And we're dead.
That's when I realized I have no idea what I'm doing.
GG.
Welcome back to the KJ After Dark Gamer Parents Podcast. I'm Joanne, your gamer mama from next door, and right here with me is my amazing husband, Kevin.
Hey there.
If this is your first time here today, Kevin and I, we're married, we have 2 kids, and we share the same passion of gaming and parenting right here in this podcast. This is episode number 32, and we'll start off with sharing about our week. So Kevin, how has your week been going in life and in gaming as well?
Yeah, so my week's been going good. On the life front, there hasn't really been a whole lot. I mean, it's actually been a lot of gaming, which has been nice. We've had kind of a lot of time to do that. We haven't been traveling or, tied up with other things in the evenings. So we've had more time for gaming. And on that side of things, I've been mentioning that I've been playing Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I finally beat that this last week.
Woohoo!
It was a lot of fun. I really liked it. The ending was kind of interesting to me. I'm not going to go into any spoilers or anything like that for sure. Mm-hmm. But I did know that the game was 16 chapters long. And, I noticed I hit chapter 15. And then, there was like a boss fight, which kind of seemed like the end of the game. And then it rolls credits. And, when that happened, I was like, what? I remember hitting chapter 15. I don't remember seeing chapter 16 pop up. Like, maybe I just missed it. And maybe, like, chapter 16 was really short. And then after the credits rolled, like, you can hear the characters still talking during the credits. And then after that, something happens. I'm not going to ruin anything for anybody, but another boss fight happens after the credits. So that really like kind of threw me off there because I thought I had kind of finished the game, and then there was kind of like one last final boss fight that they kind of snuck in there like after the credits.
So this is like the movie, like Marvel movies.
Exactly. Yeah, just like in the movies when you want to stick around after the credits for like the after credit scene.
That's
kind of the same thing. You want to stick around for the credits for that after the credits boss.
So you're saying that after the credits, you're still playing?
Yeah, so like it rolls credits and like the characters are still kind of talking, like, celebrating their victory or whatever. And then, something happens. I won't go into more detail on that. And then, there's another boss fight that happens after that. So, awesome. And it's a pretty big, like, major fight. So I would feel bad if anybody like got to the credits and was like, all right, shut down, turn it off.
Wait, so is that chapter 16?
Yeah, so that last fight is all of chapter 16.
Gotcha. Wow.
It's still insanely short, but if you're not expecting that, I could see maybe some people possibly missing that. Mm-hmm. They did a good job of like keeping it interesting, even like during the credits. Like I was just kind of watching and listening to what they were saying to kind of see what was going to happen or what they were saying and story wise and all of that. And then they, toss you back into another boss fight. So I found that really interesting. It's the way that they did that, but they pulled it off, and it overall was a fun game. And I'm glad that I finished it though.
Are you sure you finished it? Do you stick around?
Pretty sure. I made sure this time, like it actually took me back out to the main menu. So
okay,
it's done for sure.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So that was Guardians of the Galaxy. The other game that I hopped into once I beat that though was it's because it's a game that they are going to be removing from Game Pass, and it's a game called Hades. And I've heard of Hades. A lot of people have. It's a top game for a lot of people, especially in the roguelike category. It's kind of like a dungeon crawler, and I've heard good things about it. Just looking at screenshots and everything, it didn't really look like one that I really was interested in hopping into. And then all of a sudden, Game Pass was announcing that they were going to be removing that game from Game Pass. And I was like, whoa, hold up a second. like I want to try this now before I lose my chance to. Whereas like before, like I knew it was on Game Pass and like I could play it anytime I wanted, and I had like no desire to play it. But now that I know that they're going to be taking it away, I really wanted to play it. So it's funny how that worked.
Yep, that's how we all are, humans. Go figure.
Yeah, but I'm really glad that I jumped into it because I'm having a lot of fun with that game. I mean, I'm still kind of new to like some roguelikes, but I can see how this was like kind of considered the king of those roguelike games. But yeah, no, I'm having a lot of fun with that one. I've only been playing it for the last couple of days since I beat Guardians of the Galaxy, and it gets removed from Game Pass on August 31st. So only a couple days left after this episode comes out. So I'm hoping to get my feel of the game by the time it gets removed. Hopefully they don't pull it away when I'm at my height with it. But yeah, that's the one I'm going to be playing for the next few days.
Gotcha.
How about you? What's been going on in your week?
So on my part, I was gonna tell you, like, speak for yourselves when you say we had a lot of gaming time. I haven't been gaming as much as I hoped to because I was indulging in other activities such as building the wood model for the Alliance that I got off the Blizzard Gear store. And it took a lot of hours. I mean, we only have like a couple hours a night to do what we love, and it was either gaming or that, and I just had to complete it. It's just like sitting on the shelf, like looking at me every time I walk past it. So I had to just take it out and work on it. And I do have one more for the Horde, but that would have to wait maybe next month or something. But yeah, I work on it and I created a reel. My hands were a bit shaky on the reel, but it's okay. It's my first time. It's probably shaky from all the tiny pieces that I've been gluing together and putting together and painting. But yeah, go check it out at KJ_after_dark on Instagram.
How much were those things, by the way?
Just $16.99.
And unfortunately, that doesn't come with assembly.
Yeah, it doesn't come with assembly. That's the whole thing.
You had to put all of that together and color it. That was a lot of work. I mean, I watched you do a lot of that, and you put a lot of time into that.
I know. Well, the painting part is optional. Like, you don't have to color it to assemble it, but I had to,
It looks a lot better that it's colored, I would think. Like,
thank you.
That was the right call doing that. And hopefully people go and check it out and appreciate it, because it's I know how much work you put into that, and it's really cool looking, especially if you like World of Warcraft kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is a collectible, so yeah.
That's definitely going to be staying in the game room for a while, so we can add that to our collection in here.
Yeah. And then apart from that, I've also cooked a couple more dishes from the World of Warcraft cookbook. You can tell that I am a World of Warcraft addict, right? Like, everything I do is around there, or Lost Ark. So I did cook the Forest Strider drumsticks, which are essentially turkey legs that are roasted in the oven, and it was really good.
That was very good. Turkey legs are bomb.
Yeah, and then I also did a fried bread, which is technically bread that you fry. It's really good as well. It's like pizza crust.
I haven't had a chance to try that one yet, but it does look really good.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, I just made it today, so yeah, but that's about it. I think on the gaming part, it's just our weekly game, which is No Man's Sky, that we'll review later, and just a little bit of Lost Ark, but I haven't touched any other games apart from that.
Really? Just those two this week?
I think so.
And Drawbridge maybe, or?
No Drawbridge. I deleted that.
Well, shall we hop into Game Pass games?
Sure. So this week, what's new on Game Pass? Let's see. Death Stranding, which we already bought.
Excited for. Although, yes, I'm not really excited that I bought the game like a week ago. Although it was only $10. I don't even know if I'm going to bother returning it yet.
Yeah, probably more.
Just because it might be nice to have a console version. And plus, if they ever remove it from Game Pass, we still have it. But
That's true.
I know. We'll see. I'll check the game out first and then decide.
Yeah, it's only $10, but and then there's Midnight Fight Express, which is on console, PC, and cloud. Exapunks and Opus Echo of Star Song Full Bloom Edition on console and PC. And I actually, that Opus game caught my eye the moment it came out. So it's a single player game, but it's very anime-ish, and I'm into Japanese anime and stuff. Well, I don't even know if it's Japanese, but I'm just into anime, whether it's Japanese or Korean or Chinese. I just like to see cartoonish characters, so I'm definitely going to check that out.
Okay, cool. And for new game releases this last week, we have Midnight Fight Express on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Saints Row, which looks really cool. Looks like you can do a lot of cool new stuff in that game on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. We have F1 Manager 2022 on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, and PC. SD Gundam Battle Alliance on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Pac-Man World Repack on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And Soul Hackers 2 on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One, and PC. Any of those strike your fancy?
I was surprised to see F1 Manager as a game itself. I didn't know Formula One, managing Formula One itself. I thought it was gonna be more of
Well, I would think it's a Formula One racing game.
Yeah, but it's actually managing the Formula One race.
Really? Okay, I guess I may have read that one wrong.
I know, that's why I was surprised. That stood out. I was like, manager? Is it a racing game? And then I went and checked it out, and it was an official racing management simulation game. So I was like, wow.
Interesting.
It's single player though, but it's still interesting.
So you don't get to do any of the racing?
I don't know. I have no idea how it goes, but you can simulate being a manager in that.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very different take.
Exactly.
I would assume you could probably drive somehow, but maybe there's more to it, as far as building the team or the drivers and all of that. Oh, okay. That's very cool. Another one that I thought was cool was the Gundam game. But I used to like Gundam, and I had some friends that were really into Gundam when we were kids. And I just thought they were so cool, the fighting robots and all the cool weapons and stuff that they have.
But you never collect any of them, did you?
No, I didn't. Although a few of my friends did.
Yeah.
Would collect the figures and kind of build them. And
yeah, you have to build them. I remember I have a few friends who were super into them.
I just thought they looked cool, and a lot of things about them were cool. That's it for new game releases. Next, we will be talking about No Man's Sky.
Yep.
But before, I will preface all of this by saying we're going to be doing something that we have never done before. So we are actually going to have a guest on the show. Previously, it's always been just Joanne and I doing these, but we have decided to bring somebody in on this game of No Man's Sky, just being such a massive game that it is, and there's just so much there and content to talk about. We need a little bit of help with that, so somewhat kind of bringing in a guide to our conversations. And with that, let's hop over to that discussion. All right, and we are back with a guest this time. So I'd like to welcome Ethice to join in on the conversation with us about No Man's Sky. Now, Ethice, how long have you been playing No Man's Sky?
Since day one. I actually pre-ordered it. I don't pre-order more.
So day one. So game dropped and you played it the first day it came out.
Yes, I think I was at work when though I might have actually gotten that day off with PTO. But I do know I was playing it day one. Day one I was on.
Wow, that's
Oh, I remember. It was the first time I had used Steam's remote download feature. So I left my computer running when I went to work, and then I used the Steam app on my phone to queue it to download No Man's Sky when the game released. So
Wow.
I went to work that day and I downloaded it remotely. So when I got home, I was able to play it.
that's dedication right there.
Uh-huh. Was this in 2016? Just remind me
Yes,
again. Okay.
I believe it was 2016.
Okay, so the game, yeah, I think the game's been out about 6 years, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. You've been playing it for 6 years
So,
now.
so then I
Yeah,
assume,
I actually just broke 1,600 hours. That's a screenshot because I managed to. I didn't even do this intentionally, but I went to go load up my save and I saw it was 16 on the dot, so I took a screenshot of that.
wow, that is quite a feat. I think
Yeah.
I maybe just have very few games that probably even come close to anything like that. But I'm actually really curious how many hours I have on some of my WoW characters.
Oh yeah, MMOs can get crazy. I know my main in Guild Wars 2 going to be 10 years from the time of creation, the coming Christmas.
Yeah, I know my hunter in World of Warcraft is about 15 years old.
Wow. He's a teenager now.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I should not have thought about that. That's scary. But anyway, so you pre-ordered this game, so you were obviously following it and the hype and everything, like with the announcements and everything coming out before launch and all that, right?
Yes, I didn't get too swallowed up in the hype train because I tend to avoid hype because of another game that I play quite a lot. They don't have a great track record with building up hype and then like the level that the hype was at. So I kind of learned from that, like probably shouldn't jump on. So when No Man's Sky was being built up, I was following it in terms of like the deals and the idea of what the game was, but I was keeping away with it. So I didn't, outside of like some hearsay information and a couple of things on YouTube, I actually didn't know all too much about the game going with it, aside from it was going to be a space sim of some kind with exploration.
Gotcha. Okay, so 6 years ago is when you started playing. Have you pretty much played like since then, or do you take like any long breaks or anything like that?
No major breaks. I think the longest time I went without logging into at all was maybe a month, I want to say. I can't remember which updates it was, but I do go up and down on playtime because like I'll jump in, I'll play a lot for a while, and then I'll use sort of slide off and log in less, maybe of Planet X, maybe a couple of missions, but nothing like too sort of waiting for the next update or thinking of ideas of stuff I can do.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So 6 years of playtime, 1,600 hours of in-game time. You obviously have a lot of experience under your belt with this game. We have maybe 10 hours the most
Maybe you. Yeah.
with the game. So that's why you're here, to help us kind of guiding us through this conversation as we talk about the game, because you're going to know a lot more about it than us.
Yeah. Probably give us like a better understanding about it, because if we just talk about it, it would be kind of like biased since we only played like maybe 10 hours.
Sure.
of-
Yeah, you guys have a very new player experience perspective, which I watched your stream that you guys did. What was it, 2 days ago? I want to say.
Tuesday.
And it was really fascinating because I don't know a lot of people who are jumping into MS fresh. The closest person would be like my mom, and that's not really because it's fresh. It's just because she has a really bad problem with starting new sims constantly. So I hear some of the woes of like the early game from her, but it was really interesting to sort of watch you guys play and see the sort of like pros and cons of the early game experience and how it really guides new players, informs them on what there is to in the game and what it has to offer or lack thereof.
Yeah, I think it's kind of both at the same time. I think it's obvious that there's a lot of things you can do, but I feel like it's not that, doesn't really guide you into very many of them, I guess kind of outside of the quest lines.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that's very much so a sentiment I've heard is that the early game it's very hit or miss.
Gotcha. I just want to take a step back and just kind of in a basic way describing the game for anyone who hasn't played it before, doesn't know what it's about. But No Man's Sky, and feel free to add anything that you see fit here. but No Man's Sky being a like space exploration, survival, with crafting and building, and you have your starship and your suit and all your tools and everything that you're upgrading and improving on kind of as you go, with a little bit of a kind of a quest line in there. So some story and just tons of exploration.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. It's also procedurally generated is a big part of the game's sort of selling point. Is that it's effectively a massive algorithm reading a lot of the stuff that you encounter, and that will sort of play into how you will experience, for better or for worse.
Right. I think that was one of the very few things I had already known about the game going into it, was the procedural generation. And like, for example, the number of planets in the game, which I knew was something crazy. And then when I looked it up, like, it was even way more than I thought, but it's 18 quintillion different planets.
Yeah, there are 206 galaxies, one of which is not, you can't get to it without, I think, either using a mod or like a save editor, which is Galaxy Zero. Or is it that there's 257? I think there's 256 standard, like normal, because you go from 1, which is Euclid, all the way up to 256, and then it loops back to Euclid. But then there is a Galaxy Zero, which you can only get to using a mod or a save edit, is how that works.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how much a quintillion is exactly. Like, I probably couldn't even tell you that. But
I'd have to look that up too.
yeah, it's a lot of digits. There's a lot of zeros behind that. And I mean, that's just crazy to think there's that many different planets. And these planets are not tiny. They're not like super small. Like, they're...
I think the largest planets are, I think, a third the size of Earth, which is still massive. Like, that's still huge.
Well, it is the galaxy. So they are, I mean, imagine like that's what they're modeling it after. So
the No Man's Sky galaxies, if I remember correctly, are, I'd have to look it up, but they're a few times the size of the Milky Way. They're larger than our galaxy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of star counts.
Yeah, it's crazy. So basically, pretty much unlimited number of planets, and they're all just slightly different from each other. I mean, there's different characteristics that they can have, right? And that all make them different, but would it be correct to say that no two planets are exactly the same? Or
yes,
some
you would be hard-pressed to find 100% identical. You can find ones that are close, but there's always going to be something that's different about it.
Wow, okay.
The sort of, what would be the word? The sort of illusion of greater variation caused by the more nuance in it, so that basically things will feel a lot more varied than they are in the grand scheme. Because if you go into a given system, you're not going to get, say, 5 desert planets, right? So then your mind won't immediately encounter like very similar experiences. You'll go to like a thermal world, and then an ice planet, and then a toxic biome. Maybe you'll find an Earth-like planet as you move through the system. So like from system to system, you may encounter things that look very similar, but within contained systems, you typically will find a lot of localized variation, which allows this illusion to play out properly.
Right. So I guess to just kind of give people an overview, what kind of planets? I know we've explored a few different planets, right? We've seen some like ice planets. We've seen some like, I don't know if it's like toxic or something like that.
Yeah, toxic. Yeah, is what those are usually described as, the poisonous mushroom.
We've seen some that have like a lot of water. Are there like any like fiery planets or anything like that?
Yes. So to give a quick overview of the biomes and how they sort of break down.
Yes.
There are biome archetypes. So you're talking ice, fire, toxic, earth-like, and radioactive. And I'll get into the redacted ones later if you use, but those are the standard biomes. Then within each of those there are like subcategories. So for example, with lush worlds, earth-like worlds, standard earth-like worlds, grass, pretty trees, stuff like that. But then you also get swamp planets. They both technically count as an Earth-like variant, but they're drastically different in their overall feel and theme. With thermal worlds, there are actually 3. Yeah, there's 3, because you get a standard thermal world, which will typically have sort of magnified rocks or very cooled lava-looking rocks, as well as plants that are very sort of large leaf fan style plants, sort of like sails. Yeah, that would be a good descriptor. And then you also get volcanic planets, which are cool. They actually have volcanoes on, and like weird sort of like emberfied trees where they're like smoldering.
That's cool. I want to find one of those planets. We have not come across any volcanic type planets, but that sounds like we're missing out.
Some of what the prefix names are for those. Like one is like one of the funny ones is core detonation imminent. Like the planet is about to explode. That's one of the ones that's one of the descriptors for volcanic worlds.
Wow.
But the thermal subcategory is my favorite one, which are magma flora. So you get these trees and like bushes that are like plants, but they're made out of like cooled and molten lava. Looks really cool.
I need to Google that.
Ooh. Yeah, and one thing that I would say, obviously this whole podcast experience is audio only, and this game, as we describe it, just know that it creates some really cool looking visual presentation in the game, and the screenshots that I've seen people get out of this, and even just playing it ourselves, obviously, it's very nice to look at. I'll say that.
Yes.
It is.
Some of the screens are absolutely stunning. I have a folder that has like 100 pictures in it.
Wow.
It is absolutely stunning, beautiful game. It is the Joanne equivalent of video games. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out for that alone. But obviously, you don't get that out of the us just describing it with words. So I know we have described what people can expect as far as the biomes and the different planets and everything out there. Also wanted to kind of jump into our experience with it, at least like the early game stuff, and ask obviously some questions of how those things traverse into end game. Like you mentioned, we streamed it earlier in the week on Tuesday. By the way, we stream on YouTube every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Central. And with that early game, obviously some of the things that we were really focused on was just repairing, or like I guess replenishing our exosuit in terms of the oxygen and the environmental hazard or whatever it's called.
Yeah, hazard protection.
Hazard protection, there we go. Because both those things kind of slowly draw down, and you need to replenish them using oxygen and sodium.
Sodium, yeah.
If I remember right. So that was kind of one of the things we were kind of focusing on early game. It was like just surviving while trying to also kind of explore and collect other materials at the same time. And then earlier on in the game, it has you repair your first starship, kind of go through the quests to like repair the various parts of it so that you could make it flyable. They teach you how to do all of that. And then you finally get, off the ground floor of the first planet. And then you start to kind of planet hop and explore other biomes and stuff too. So it kind of starts off the game that way. When did you have any other experiences like to add to that?
I like the part where, remember when we were like learning how to shoot at stuff with our laser? Is it mining laser? No, I don't know. With our laser tool.
Yeah, the mining laser.
Yeah, I like how like whatever you shoot, like it goes really far, and then whatever you shoot, you just like collect it right away. You don't have to walk over to the thing to get it. So that was pretty convenient. So I remember liking that a lot, and I start shooting everything. Yeah,
that's big time quality of life for me. When as soon as the loot appears, right, as soon as you use the laser to break something down, it automatically gets drawn to you, like no matter how far away it is, and it goes right into your inventory. Like, that's really nice. You don't have to walk over to something and go loot it. Yeah, I think for me, I've wasted a lot of time looting, going from body to body to get your loot or gear and stuff, and this is just a lot nicer version of that. And then again, obviously, it works, with a lot of the materials like stacking to very large amounts and stuff like that. That it works in this game in the way they do it, which is nice.
Yeah, because everything's like so far away. You're not gonna want to walk there just to pick up loot, so it helps.
Yep, and one thing that
I could not imagine stuff like that. That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
In No Man's Sky.
Yeah, in some games it is. I think it would be pretty bad in this one with how far away things can be. And another thing that I really liked that you unlocked pretty early on is, what is the other tool that we've been using a lot of?
The terrain manipulator?
Yes, terrain manipulator it is. That is so much fun to use for me. I could spend like hours just messing around with that thing. And I say that because I have spent hours messing around with that thing. I'll just like dig myself into a really big hole, or obviously one of the first things I wondered was how far down you could go, like how far it would let you. But anyways, the terrain manipulator, it lets you like destroy the planet or the terrain. Like you can just basically like blast holes in the ground. You can find stuff like under the ground if there's any items that are hidden in places like that.
Copper.
Yeah, you can also use it to like flatten the ground. If you're looking for a spot to like build a base or that kind of thing.
The game has a cache limit for the amount of terrain, and once that cache limit is hit, it will reset the oldest terrain back to. So whenever you build bases, always build above ground.
Okay. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, most people don't. Most people think that like, hey, this tool is, and I'll use it the way it is shown to work. But then, yeah, everyone hits that. They encounter that, and a lot of people usually end up going onto the subreddit and being like, hey, I dug out this mountain to build a base. When I came back, it was all filled back in.
That would suck. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you told us about that. I mean, I haven't used it for base building or anything like that. I've just been like running around having fun with it, and then I figured out how you could make terrain too. I was like making rock, and like I was like walking along it as I was making it. I was basically like being frozen. Like, what's his name? Frozen?
Yeah, Elsa. Oh, Frozen. I was thinking Princess Elsa, but yeah, to you it's Frozone.
Oh yeah,
Frozone.
I'm totally thinking Frozone. Just like
Same.
I was creating a bridge to like walk from one island off to like another one. I didn't have to swim across, even though it was way faster to just swim. But hey, I was having fun.
Yeah, it was funny that you were like, I'm like Frozen. I'm like, you're like Elsa.
Yeah, except it was just like rock instead of ice.
Ice.
It looked really cool when I was all done with it.
Stone Zone.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, another thing we haven't really talked about, I know I mentioned a little bit, you get a starship in the game. You can actually have up to 9, is that right?
Yes, yeah, they recently increased it up to 9.
Okay.
It used to be 6.
It used to be 6. I just have 1 at this point. I think I had an opportunity to get another one. Like I found like a broken one and you had to like repair it, but I didn't bother doing that. I was good with my 1. What are the benefits to having more than 1?
There's the baseline benefit of just having free storage, basically, which is so sort of the way I explain using the Colossus Exocraft early game is that it's just a wonderful storage compartment. It just gives you access to, I think it's like 40 or like 35 slots of just open storage, just spawn on a planet whenever and that's kind of the benefit of having multiple starships. Like if you can find a couple of cheap ones that you like the look of, even if you don't plan on if you have the money, you might as well just buy them and then just call them down when you need a place to basically use them as a closet.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's one thing that I've struggled a little bit with, like not terribly. It's just like the inventory space, like always making sure I have to, visit a space station or a vendor somewhere to kind of offload some of the stuff. I don't really think I need that much.
Yeah, the early game inventory management, and it really helps if you have someone who you can ask like, hey, what's important, or how do I get more slots quickly? Because it really helps if you space with how much you're to, I would say, enjoy the game after a certain amount of time. Because like obviously there's sort of initial fade that you have where annoyance of inventory management doesn't get in, but eventually it starts to really bother if it's not handled.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like the game offers a lot of ways that you can handle inventory space, like you were mentioning.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, like it's not hard to management. It's just kind of overwhelming at first because you're provided with a lot of different items and material. And so it's very easy bewildered by all the different stuff that you have and not knowing like what's used. And then also not necessarily knowing that early game, like, oh yeah, I can just, I can just have a second starship that I can use for the time being, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's something that hopefully we can do that next. I need to get a second starship. But anyways, onto space battle. So you can fly your ship, you can shoot like lasers and rockets and stuff like that. And obviously a lot more on that we haven't even unlocked or gotten into at all. But the last time I played, which was so the last time I played on the stream, I kept coming across space pirates. Like, like it seemed like constantly. Are they like more prevalent in certain areas, or is it like when you reach a certain point in the game, or like was there like some kind of bounty on me that I don't know about, like why I kept getting attacked by these space pirates?
It's system specific. So you probably don't have this technology installed in your ship yet, but when you can, I would recommend. It's called a conflict scanner, and it'll tell you the threat level of any system you go to. There's 4 threat levels. There's 1, which is basically peaceful. You go to a 1-star threat level. I actually think they changed it so that in 1 stars, pirates do not attack you at all. Like, period. It's basically safe space. Then there's 2-star, which is like mildly dangerous, not really. 3-star, which is at war. Like the whole system is like in conflict. You'll get scanned quite often and get attacked by pirates and things. And then there's pirate systems, which I think they have a higher pirate frequency 3-star, but I don't know how much so.
Gotcha. I mean, I want to say I got attacked by pirates like 4 times in like a 2-hour period, and I was just trying to like mind my own business. I was trying to do the next part of the quest, and they were on to me, and I got to my quest spot, like they chased me there, and I was like, all right, I'll just like maybe see if I can just land my ship, and like they'll leave me alone, like if I go to the surface, and that didn't work at all. It didn't let me land the ship. Like they just kept shooting at me until you were watching and gave me some advice to was it pulse drive or pulse engine?
Yeah,
use the pulse engine to get away.
Fly into space,
Yeah.
fly it in a straight line, just go until it'll give you a message. It'll say pulse drive back online, and then you can initiate pulse and escape the pirates.
Yeah, I basically I had to run away with my tail between my legs after taking a bunch of damage.
I was like, oh no, he's gonna die.
Yeah, I was watching and like we were on the same planet a few times, and then suddenly it says KJ After Dark has engaged pirates. I'm like, why are you engaging with pirates?
Yeah, that was not my decision. That was not up to me. I was trying to ignore them and not do that. But yeah, anyways, I took down a few pirates. It seemed like there were like some other, I don't know if there were other players like around me at the same time. Is there any way to tell the difference between a pirate ship and another player ship?
Those were NPC, and they will intervene in pirate attacks if they're close enough. Yes, yellow and green are friendlies.
Okay, and that's like the trail behind the ship?
Yes.
Okay, and then the pirates are red.
Yeah, pirates are always red.
Okay, I did take down some pirates.
Yeah, or I should say hostiles are always red, because sentinel ships will also have a red trail behind them when they're against you.
Gotcha. Okay, I saw there was a lot of reds around me, so
I was watching, and initially when you were trying to go down to the planet, I was trying to type out like you're not going to be able to land, but then I was watching, and I remember when I saw the amount of warp signatures that popped up on your screen, I was like, oh no, he's going to die. I did not know that it doesn't scale. I honestly thought that like earlier game there would be something that would acknowledge the fact that you haven't played for very good equipment. So if it did spawn pirates on you, 1, 3 at most, but no, you got spawned on by like 5 or 6 ships.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, like they didn't take me down like too quick. I kept like repairing my shield, and then I was out of whatever it takes to do that.
Yeah, you were holding your own.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was repairing my shield, but I wasn't really fighting back very much until I think I took maybe one of them down, and then I hightailed it out of there.
I actually was impressed, because considering that was probably your first, or I don't know.
It was the first. Yeah.
It was okay. Yeah, it was your first pirate attack. You handled it pretty well for like really not knowing the sort of moves you needed to make. But like you were working your way through it and surviving, and I thought it was really like it was cool to watch, and I'm glad you made it out.
Yeah, and I'm glad I survived. I haven't died yet in the game, and I feel like I've gotten pretty lucky for that. So, anyways, I've also heard there are also is it space whales?
Yes, they just added those in with the last update in Durham.
That sounds really cool. Tell us more about those.
They are a continuation of the big reward at the end of the Leviathan expedition, which if you completed the entire expedition, you got your own space whale frigate, also known as living frigate, as a part of your frigate fleet for your capital ship or your freighter. And they actually introduce them as a thing in game that you can encounter and things like that with their own procedural generation and everything. They are to each system, so they kind of function like exotic ships where there's only one variation of them per system. And they have a small little micro quest associated with them. They look very cool. They make very interesting sounds. Their unique sort of trait, what makes them stand out from other frigates, other than just their aesthetics, is the fact that you can feed them food to change their stats at any point in time, unless they're so they're the most versatile frigate that you.
And so, can you like randomly come across them flying around in space?
After you do the initial micro quest, yes. So when you send out your frigate fleet, will be given the chance to receive a blueprint for an item called a drill, which you then craft and then keeping your inventory as you fly around. And so when you're pulsing through space, the very first time with that dream area will guarantee that you will be contacted or you will pick up the signature of a living frigate in that system, and then you can for free take it on as an ally, and it'll join your frigate or your freighter fleet. After that, you then use anomaly detectors to find more of them at a sort of random.
Obviously, you've been playing the game since launch. From then till now, what do you think are some of the biggest changes that you've seen them implement?
Yeah, if we're talking about from the 2016 till now, 3 I would say is the addition of the anomaly with proper multiplayer. That was huge, and they did this really cool build up to it where there's actually a narrative behind why we can see other players now. They actually wrote it into them, and it's kind of sad because if you weren't there, you don't know this, but they wrote it in the addition of multiplayer as an actual in-universe occurrence that happened. So there's like boundaries in sort of the fabric of the universe of No Man's Sky, and they're sort of interacting with each other at various times and in different places. The boundaries between those phases were weakening, and that was sort of the story and why we were eventually able to then see these spark bubbles, which were other players. So initially, before they introduced the character creation, you were just this little floating like blue bubble that was like a spark that would float around. And that was the initial introduction to multiplayer. And you could meet another player and create this monument where it would put both of your names on it, and it would say it was a point of first contact with another player. It was a whole thing in the game. It was and then eventually they evolved that system into the proper multiplayer system with the addition of the anomaly, the actual player hub location that everyone can access from fairly early. The second thing I would say is character customization. I think it's fairly important to be able to customize your character in a game like No Man's Sky, where there are set characters that you play. Because like in a game like say like The Witcher or like Assassin's Creed, you're not playing a proxy of yourself, right? You're playing that character through their story.
Yeah.
But in a game like No Man's Sky or like say like even Destiny or like Guild Wars 2, Guild Wars 2 more sort of outside of like the actual story, but like as far as the world is concerned, you are playing a proxy of yourself or a character that you are creating. And so I think it was super important when they added that to the game, because it really grounded you in the universe. Because then it's like, oh, cool, this is what I look like in this verse, or this is what my character, and it sort of sparked the imagination with that. And then the third thing I think was very important to them was base building, and because it was really the first time where we had like you as the player had the ability to leave your mark on, because we found out fairly early, this was unfortunate, that when you discover something and you upload it to the servers, that is a very the only way your uploads really stick around with any sort of like concrete agency is if that system is visited frequently. So like if a lot of players go there, or if you go to that system constantly, it will remain relevant within the background system, however that works. But systems that you discover and upload and then abandon, if you go back to them a year later, it might still say that you discovered it, but like all the names will be reverted back to default. You'll have to rescan all the plants and animals, things like that. But with base building,
if you built anything on that planet, would it still be there, or would it like go away?
Yes, and that's what I mean. Like, even if the planet reverts back to default in terms of its naming, right? And even if for some reason it doesn't say that you originally discovered it, your base is still there. So you have that sort of stake on that planet where you're like, I was here. And I think that that's super important. And then by an extension of that sort of system, freighters I think are also were a very cool thing that they added to the because it allowed you to sort of take that base system with you as you traveled around and explored.
Can you have a question? If they don't have this, they definitely should. Can you craft like a custom flag that you can put in the ground on every planet you visit?
Flag, no. There are set flag designs in the game. There are a good number of them, and you can recolor them. So you can sort of have your own flag, so to speak, where you can, at all of your bases, if you wanted to, use one specific flag design with one specific color scheme. And so then whenever you go to your bases, you have that flag to sort of show off, and that can sort of to some degree flag. But unfortunately, no, there's no like decal system like Call of Duty or Halo where you can actually design your own.
Okay, that's kind of cool, but yeah, I would just be more excited about staking my claim to every planet I visit and claiming each planet as my own.
Well, the cool thing is with bases, it will always say who owns the base. So when you view a base, it'll actually say the base's name and then your name will beneath it in like the terminus pool. So there's never any mistake of like whose base. And just a quick cliff note back to the whole like planets reverting. Usually what will revert is just the renaming of usually, and I can't say this way, but usually the original discoverer of the planet will actually persist even if the planet hasn't been in time. The system does usually remember that, but it most certainly reverts the names back to default after a certain amount of time if the location is not visited. And I do rename I don't rename animals or plants or rocks, but I do rename planets.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of stick to a certain region of space, so a lot of my discoveries haven't reverted too much back to their originals, but I definitely know that I have systems that are even like very close to my home system that have reverted back because they're close. I haven't been. So if I were to go to them now, I'd probably have to rediscover all the planets. But after I did it, it would probably say that I did originally discover them, for example, 2 years ago. And that's what I mean. Like, it'll revert everything. But then once you re-upload it, it'll actually usually say that your original discovery point first found it is still there, which is a weird sort of way that works.
That is a little bit different. Now, obviously, you've seen a lot of the updates that they've made since launch and things that they've added. Any ideas of where they're going to continue to take the game in the future? I mean, like towards more PvP or just obviously, I don't think they can really push the boundaries of expansion any farther than they have. But any ideas or anything that you think they may take?
Man, that's a really hard question to answer though, because every update past like Beyond was kind of with the exception of maybe like Origins and Next, right? Because those were, if I remember correctly, I know Next was a very quality of life update, and Origins I believe was similar to that, but like I mean, like, I don't think anyone saw most of these updates coming. Like no one saw Living Ships, right?
Yeah.
No one saw Desolation. No one saw Examech. Companions, I think people could have probably guessed might have eventually gotten some sort of taming system for it. But like Outlaws, right? The idea is like, sure, pretty simple. Like, cool, we have pirate systems now, but like, I don't think anyone would have saw like solar ships come into play out of that. It's cool that they added like the cape finally into the game because people were asking for like cape physics for a while. But like solar ships, like that was out of nowhere, and that's my favorite ship type now. Holy cow, I love solar ships.
Huh. Do they have black holes in the game?
Yes, but they don't function like black holes in theory.
Okay, I think that would be cool to see and interact with and kind of see. I imagine they could do something pretty fun.
The Endurance updated their aesthetic, and they actually like distort space like black holes now. It's really cool. Black holes look way more interesting. They look very cool. On like they don't function like black holes in theory. They function like wormholes. So you go through them, they take you to an.
Okay.
They will spit you out a significant distance from you started from. They will damage a component on you, so you will always have to repair something after you go through a black hole. But they're a way to travel very far distance. With luck, get closer to the center of the galaxy if that's your goal.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't know those existed in the game, but I figured they may have something like that, so that's why I asked. But I think it's time we can go ahead and get into our category reviews.
Yes.
Okay, so for the first category of convenience, Joanne, what did you think about that one?
So far I thought it was pretty convenient, but mostly because I'm still in the early part of the game. Like I'm not engaging with pirates just yet. I think so far, as long as I stay in my spaceship, I don't have to worry about the exosuit, well, the protectiveness of the suit falling. So I would say it's pretty okay for me to AFK, but I may be wrong as you go towards the end game or even your part. So I would give it a convenience rating of 7 out of 10.
Okay. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, so pretty similar to you. Reasons being, I know you can pause, I think, in the single player mode, but not in the multiplayer mode. And then obviously most of the planets have some kind of environmental harm to your suit. So that's something you need to kind of pay attention to, or not just sit there and take too much of. But then you can always get to safe places like I think in your ship or on a space station, or those kind of places where you don't have to worry about that as much. So I mean, it's not like extremely easy to just get up and walk away, whenever you want, but it's pretty routinely where you can get to a safe place and not have to worry about it too much. Then again, if pirates are hunting you down all day, then that kind of changes things a little bit, like it was for me the other day. But I think in normal cases, probably slightly above average to me.
The only reason why I'm not giving it like a higher rating on convenience is that because sometimes I tend to wander really far from my spaceship, and at this moment I don't have any method or any exocrafts or anything to get back to my ship. I just have to keep walking back to it, AFK. So that was why I thought that was really hard, because I never realized how far I've walked until I have to walk back. So.
That also reminds me, Ethice gave me a really good tip of how to move faster, which actually worked out very well, of the whole while you're running melee and then jump, and helps you kind of travel in that one direction a lot faster than you would. So that was a great tip, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
What do you think about convenience?
I actually gave it an 8. I probably wouldn't drop it lower than a 7 for me. Now, granted, I've been well established for a while in the game, so and that also dictates sort of what I'm doing now, because a lot of what I'm doing is base building, or I'm like doing stuff in my freighter, or I'm like in the anomaly hub, just sort of sitting around, or I'm doing minor exploration on a planet where I'm not traversing this very far from my. But like you said, there is the pause in single. If there's no one else around, you just tab out of the game pauses. I also think that the sort of AFK ability does increase and go further, because you'll get access to like exocraft. Also, if you have a terrain manipulator and you're on a planet, you can always just do the old Minecraft thing. Just dig a hole and bury yourself, and you'll be safe. Nothing can burrow into the ground. You don't have to worry about. And then as far as space pirates are concerned, and it's kind of unfortunate the game doesn't show you this, the anomaly cannot be disrupted from being summoned. Your freighter can, but the anomaly can't. So when pirates are scanning you, or even when they're about to spawn, you can still spawn the anomaly and fly inside of it to get away from pirates.
That's good to know, especially because I don't like these pirates already, so I'm going to try that next time for sure.
Yes. I think once they spawn, you can't call the anomaly in, but I think at any point within like from them starting the scan to right before they spawn, I believe you can spawn the anomaly and then thus escape.
I'm going to try that one. So the next category is going to be communication. Joanne, how do you feel about the communication here?
Well, given that the first time we played this game, the first time we stream it, even, I don't think you and I were on the same planet at all, or did we bump into each other at all?
So I think I started the game before you, like a day before you, and so I was always kind of a little bit ahead of you, and it kind of took a little while for you to get back to the same planet as me.
Yeah, yeah, and we're pretty much doing our own thing. Like you have your quest and I have my quest. It's not like we have to help each other with one quest. So I would give it a low communication rating, but not too low. I think I'm giving it about a 3 because it's more like at your own pace.
Yeah. So I think my take on the communication, I think No Man's Sky is definitely a game that's designed to be able to play it on your own first, and then kind of as more of a secondary, being able to explore or, play the game with friends, but it's definitely not required. And, therefore there's not really that much communication that is needed to, experience the game at its fullest. So I actually also gave it a 3. But I mean, I think it's not necessarily the game's fault. That's just kind of like it's the kind of game that it is. It's kind of meant to kind of go at your own pace and kind of do your own thing. And you definitely do not have to, play the whole buddy system thing.
Yeah.
So, Ethice, what about you? Any thoughts on the communication?
I think I would slap a 5 on it. And that's because while a lot of it isn't required, like you can definitely muddle your way through the game. I really tend to put a lot of emphasis on having someone you can talk to about it, because there's, especially for early game, because like coming into the game, there's a lot of stuff that like you won't know. That's just like the anomaly trick, right, or like melee skating, that makes playing the game just a more enjoyable experience, or even could like save your butt, right? And so like, while yeah, you go through and you could figure that stuff out, I think having someone you can communicate with, um, for that kind of information early on is very helpful. And then later on, when you start learning more things about the systems, having someone who you can talk to about various crafting recipes or good locations, just like mining bases or other things like that, can be very useful. So I would give it probably a 5, because like, yeah, none of that's required, right? Like you could just go through the entire experience by yourself and never person. I just think that it's a huge advantage to be.
Sure,
Yeah.
I can see that.
That's a
And
fair point.
as big of a game as it is, and there's a lot to do and to learn, and there's a lot of things you could talk about with that. Now, next category is story. Joanne, where are you at on the story?
Okay, I know there's a story, but just because right now I think I'm still like
In the tutorial?
in the prologue of everything. So I would just give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
So I'm giving it higher because I just think that there's effort. They're not just like do this, do that. So
Right. Okay. For me, I'm giving the story a 5, so kind of an average. And I don't really think that's the main draw of the game. To me, is not necessarily the story or the narrative of the game. I think it's more of the exploration and survival side of it that I think is more interesting to me. But then again, still at least an average story. I do like the whole Artemis feel, where you're trying to locate a kind of long lost space explorer, and you're kind of in communication with them and trying to find each other, that kind of thing. Seems like it's going to be a really cool, interesting story to follow. But I don't think it's completely story driven as some other games.
I also gave it a 5, and it's kind of funny because I actually really like the story of No Man, kind of the collection of stories, I should actually say. But the way it's presented and handled is very hit or miss for some players, and I can acknowledge that, because like for me it was perfect, it was phenomenal. I actually really liked the story. I enjoyed the Artemis quest line. I did the Atlas quest. There's a bunch of minor storylines that you can follow. There's like 2 or 3 abandoned building storylines. There's the storyline tied to the submarine, the Nautilus. There is the Atlas interface story, which is 16 logs that you get from going into the back room of different like planetary and space station interior. Like there's a lot of there's also the alien histories, the stories of the Get Corvex and Vy'keen. They have each of them have their own history, which is all told in game. And so like there's a lot of lore and narrative in the game, but it's not something that's like imperative to the game. Like Kevin said, like that's not the main focus or the main draw is definitely not the story. And that's where I think I've actually seen a bunch of players where they're really like they're dissuaded by the story because they came into the game thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go fly around space and explore and find cool things and collect animals and collect ships and get a giant freighter and build a fleet up and build bases, right? But then they're pigeonholed into like the Artemis story in the early game when really they're just trying to play the sandbox. And so like I really think the story either catches you and you're just like, holy cow, this is really interesting, or it's just fighting with you the entire time because it's really not what you're there. And so I just gave it a solid 5 right down the middle because it won the player, whether or not they're going to enjoy that experience.
And I think, Kevin, you and I have always been different in that sense as well. Like I'm very like into story stuff. So
yeah, I think for me, like if the story is really good, like that's what I latch onto, and like pretty much like most Final Fantasy games I really like because of the story. Games like Witcher, God of War, even Guardians of the Galaxy, the game I played most recently. Really good story, and like if the story is really good, I don't really care that much about the rest of the game. So next category is on repeatability. Joanne, you've been starting us off on each of these. Want to go and start us off on this one too?
Yeah, I would say the repeatability is pretty high. Like I said, it's at your own pace, and I have to keep playing it to get to the end of the story. Plus, I want to know the lore of every alien species out there. So I'm giving it a repeatability of 8.
8. Okay. All right. For me, I am also giving it a high repeatability score because I even hear there's people who play up to 1,600 hours of this game.
Man,
because
they sound like huge nerds.
Because the repeatability is so strong in this game. I'm actually giving it a 10. So 10 out of 10. I very, very rarely give any game a 10 in any category. I think this is maybe like the second time ever when you have 18 quintillion planets. And I mean, I think they've done like 10 to 15 different like updates or different releases, or probably more than that, with tons and tons of content and things to do, along with the story and all the exploration. It's just, and the list goes on and on and on. And I don't think you could really ever run out of things to do. Maybe you can after 1,600 hours. I don't know. But that's obviously a lot of things you can do in the game. And that can keep you busy, keeps you coming back for more, and it's repeatability. So I gave it a 10. I think, Ethice, I think you kind of have to give it a high score here because you have a proven history that this game is repeatable. What did you rank it?
I'm sitting between like an 8 and a 9, probably leaning more toward 9, but I can't give it a 10. Okay. That's because I have like a middling engagement with community. Like I'm not huge in iterating. I do some uploads on the subreddit range, and I try to answer questions when I can. But the reason I can't give it a solid 10, and like why I might even be closer to the low end of 9, maybe more toward 8, is because like, yeah, I have 1,600 hours, but that is one because of all of the updates, like the continued support for the game, but another is because of the pacing that I as a player have. I've seen people on the subreddit that have sprinted way further than I have in terms of like collection and gain. They have all the ships they want. They have an S-class max slot freighter with all of the upgrades on it. They've maxed out their exosuit. They've maxed out all their starships. They've maxed out all their multi-tools. They built up all their like they've done everything, right? And they got there with less hours than I have.
Right, so they just pace themselves.
They go into the Reddit and they're like, "What do I do?"
Yeah.
So I really think that yes, the game has a ton of replayability. Like yes, it's there 100%. I don't I think the only argument that can be made against the replayability is the fact that it's sort of like the limitations of the Procedural Generation, right? Like you just end up seeing a lot of similar stuff. But overall, the game, you can play it for a very long time and keep finding fun and interesting things. But I can't give it a solid 10 because it's heavily tied to the player themselves. Like if you're a player that is very efficient in your progress, you're going to hit that wall much faster than, because like I said, I'm at 1600 hours, but I still have stuff I can do in the game, and that's because I don't have a huge interest in completionism in video games. One, and two, I tend not to sprint through games just in general. Like I'm a very go with the flow and enjoy the experience kind of player. So my pacing through video games tends to make them last a little bit longer than maybe average. So for me, replayability is definitely a huge thing on there. But I can easily see it that for other people are very efficient in their play style or don't have a lot of interest in a lot of what the game has to offer, that replayability would actually kind of drop off. Because like, for example, some people who might be more into the exploration and actually not like combat at all, well, that's a large portion of the game they're not really going to do. That means they're going to avoid Sentinel content. They might not invest in the settlement because you have to defend it. They're not going to do like biological horror or worm nest content. They're potentially going to avoid derelicts, which is the only real way to upgrade your freighter. So, like it for players that kind of like a specific portion of the game, they're also not going to get as much replayability out of it because they're not in it for the entire package. So they're inherently going to have less to do.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I give it like a between.
All right, I'm going to put you down as a 9 for that one. It's going to be closer to me than with Joanne. But yeah, I think we could all agree, a lot of repeatability. Now, the last category, which to me has always been the easiest and the best and the simplest, and that is fun. So just in general, how much fun you get out of playing the game. Joanne, what do you think?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10, but that's still on the higher side because I think like with this game, there's tons of things to do. For you, you're into more exploration and stuff, and I'm into discovering every plant and animal there is in one place and learning the language and stuff like that, and definitely following the story as well. So it's all dependent on the player, I would say.
That's true.
So
I think one thing I've noticed as we play through like all of these different games together, of like how different we are in terms of like what's important to us, right? Like in this game, you were more interested in the language and stuff, and like I couldn't care less about like learning the words or like kind of that lore kind of stuff. Or like Dead by Daylight, you were like reading all of the characters' lore and descriptions and the backstories and everything, and like I just wanted to play the game and didn't really care know the characters or where they came from or anything like that. But it's interesting to kind of see your experience with them too and how you feel about them. You said you gave it a 7?
Yes.
Right. I also gave it a 7 for fun. I mean, it's definitely a game that I'm glad we're able to try out, even if it's just for somewhat of a short time. I think it's one that is extremely unique. It's probably the most unique game that we have played so far in the podcast. There's a lot of things that kind of add to the game's resume that no other game can really boast about. I think it's definitely an interesting one, and it's been fun along the way too. So I also gave it a 7.
I gave it a 7 too, but now I'm reconsidering. I'm going to stick with 7 because I'm gonna roll with that. I also gave it. The game is super fun and interesting, but I've also seen the other half where like I have friends who just kind of struggle to hold on to that interest, and so I do think it depends a lot on the player again. I have a very sort of childlike wonder to the way I engage with video games and like even the world at large. I'm like easily fascinated with stuff, and I have that sort of fascination with it. And so even after 1600 hours, I go down to a planet and I see like a wheelipede or a strider, or I look up into the sky and there's dactyls flying around. and I'm just like, oh, holy cow, look at that. Oh man, look over there. Look at that. And that's still me. After 1,600 hours, is like I'm still being like blown away by like cool looking things. And because of that, I can sort of maintain that level of fun, at least that as a baseline, right? There's times I have more fun than that, where like I absolutely love doing sentinel combat. We do planet clears. You go find some sentinels, you basically fight a skirmish with them, you get them up to 5 levels, you defeat the big walker, and then the whole planet clears, and it has no sentinels until you like leave the system and come back, and that's super fun for me as well. Building up my ships, collecting all that kind of stuff I've actually enjoyed quite a lot, but that's because of like the kind of person / player I am.
Okay, very cool. 777 sevens all around from each of us on fun.
No, that's first.
Some quick totals really quick, not too far off from kind of where we all stood overall. So it's just a reminder, is out of 50 for these. Mine was a 31, Joanne was a 32, Ethice, you're at a 34. So I think, as to be expected, I was actually expecting you to have, I kind of think, a higher score than us overall, just because you have a lot more experience with the game and know a lot more about it. But yeah, right, kind of there somewhat along with us. Definitely helped my score that I gave it a 10, had a 10 in there on repeatability, but yeah, that's a pretty decent score. I mean, I know we say these things are out of 50, but with basically an average being like 25, anything over 30 is pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's it for the game review. Next thing we have, if anyone is interested in checking out our stream this upcoming Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. on YouTube, as I mentioned before. Don't know what game we're going to be streaming this next time. We'll have to find one that can handle following up No Man's Sky. But that is just over on the YouTube channel, KJ After Dark. You can also check us out on twitter.com/KJ After Dark, or follow us on Instagram at KJ_After_Dark. And if you could give us a like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is, wherever it is, that would be appreciated. And that's all we have for you guys this week. Big thank you to Ethice for joining us to talk about No Man's Sky, giving us a lot more to talk about, answering all of our questions, giving us all of these pro tips to help us out. So thank you so much for
hit it till it dies.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks for being willing to kind of come on here and talk about the game and everything. You've been super helpful, man.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
All right, thanks again, and thanks everyone who's listening. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.